Community building is like the turkey in the Thanksgiving table. People gather to eat the turkey, but what really matters are the conversations around it. When I post an event, when I post a blog, when I do anything that brings people to a common point, that is just an excuse. What matters is that keeps happening. And the more it happens, the more people see each other's face, the more they build familiarity. The more they build familiarity, the more they trust each other, the more they share. And the more they participate, and the more it grows.
Hi, this is Soumya, and you are listening to Loneliness Busters, a podcast where I talk to founders, researchers, policymakers, investors, community builders, and more on how to build a more connected world. I hope you join the squad. We need all hands on deck now more than ever. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to have Laís de Oliveira. Lais is an author of the best-selling book, Hacking Communities, that enables anyone to start and grow a high-impact community, one based on relationship, trust, and belonging. Lais is an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience in scaling diverse communities, from startup ecosystems such as Startup Grind to nonprofit organizations. She sold her first business to flyspaces.com, Southeast Asia's largest marketplace for workplace. Originally from Brazil, Lais has lived in 7 countries. She's a passionate community leader and a wonderful human, and I'm so grateful to have her here today. Lais, welcome to the pod.
So much. So great to be here. And such an important topic to discuss.
Awesome. Let's kick off then. Tell us a little bit about your story, where you come from, and what made you a community builder.
All right. It's funny that you asked where I come from, because I love the question. And I'm going to start from there. I come from a very small town in Brazil. Not even Brazilians know it oftentimes. It's in the countryside and it has 40,000 inhabitants, which might be big for some countries, but in Brazil, that's very small. And I am from a very large family. My mom had 11 siblings. My dad had 7 siblings. And I grew up surrounded by hundreds of cousins. Maybe not hundreds, but that felt like it. And aunts, and like at a normal dinner table during a holiday, we would have 50. And my grandma was like the center of it, right? So I think I grew up with that. And then I moved on. I left my hometown to study in the larger city of my province. And then from there, I joined an NGO, a nonprofit. And from there, I moved to Argentina, actually Mauritius first in the Indian Ocean, then Argentina, working for that NGO, and Chile, and started working on startups after that NGO experience. And that led me to Malaysia, where actually for the first time, I was just doing what I usually would do. I was organizing meetups for startups, which I had been doing for the past 2 years. And I was connecting people from that startup ecosystem. And someone from the Malaysian government invited me for lunch. And I went with this lady and this man from the Malaysian government, and they were touring me around Cyberjaya, which is like their plan for a tech city, like their plan for Palo Alto, Monteview kind of thing. And they were showing me around the government buildings and their intentions. And they sat with me for lunch in a very fancy place. And they were saying, we need more community builders here like you. And that was my first time hearing that term. And I had no idea what that meant, but I heard and I knew they meant they needed someone like me and more people like me. And I was like, sure, yeah, that's community building. That's what I do totally. And I understood the term initially and immediately, but at the same time, it was new. But from then on, I figured that what I was doing had a name. And then I started connecting with other community builders who identified themselves as such all over the world. And the more I gained experience and gave names to the things I was organizing and doing, engineering serendipity and calling the things I do like throwing parties with a purpose, I would find people across the world who would use the exact same terminology, yet we had never yet met. So I found that there's this network of connected brains that are doing a kind of same thing. And I understood this is a department, this is an art, this is a compound of knowledge that should exist in the world, packaged as such, as community building. So 2014, that's when I started calling it community building. And the rest is as history.
That's such a beautiful story. It seems like you walked into community building. It just naturally became a part of your professional, personal life. I love your book. So tell me a little bit about what Yeah, it's one of those books that's written with all of your heart and your mind. And it's very rare to find books like those, which have weaved in personal story as well as very tactical frameworks that people can use on day one after reading the book. So tell me a little bit about what drew you to write this book, and yeah, and why did you write it the time you wrote it?
Again, I figured community building exists and it should be recognized as this compound of tactics, knowledges, like an academic field. And I would drop out of college. And that connected to the fact when I learned that what I had been doing had a name, I started writing an article. I got very excited about it. And I started writing an article called Hacking Communities to describe my experience of landing in Malaysia and within 6 months having become probably the first and only Brazilian to have worked for the Malaysian government. But then I was like writing this article and it soon became longer than the article. And I also figured I want to gather, that was 2014. And I wanted to gather more experience and validate what I was going through and see it through before writing about it. So in 2018, I finally sat down to write my article. The year I decided to leave Malaysia for good because I wanted to move back closer to my family in Brazil. My parents didn't build family, which is what I'm
And talk to us about what you did between 2014 and 18 to get experience or validation of some of the ideas that you had.
Absolutely. So by the time I had the first idea of writing an article called Hacking Communities, I was starting to work with the Malaysian government for one of their largest initiatives for tech ecosystem development. As part of that, it was called MAGIC, Malaysian Global Innovation and Creativity Center. So for those almost 5 years, I worked with the MAGIC team and I helped them develop something called the Startup Academy. I delivered and created workshops on business acumen. I was judging for their demo days. I was a mentor in residence for their accelerator program. And I helped them shape the cultural aspect of their accelerator program. And at the same time, I was working at Startup Grind. I was hosting dinners independently called Serendipity Dinners to attract international VCs to Southeast Asia, to Malaysia specifically. I was attending every single tech conference in the region, everywhere. I was part of building a community of community builders in Southeast Asia. And I was most importantly, director for Asia Pacific and Africa for Startup Grind, helping them expand and grow Startup Grind into 80 chapters. But more importantly, I was the one setting up the seed of the idea that Startup Grind should grow into 600 chapters. And 500, I said, actually. And Derek Anderson, by the time we had 100 and something, was like, "You're crazy. This is hard to scale." I'm like, "So what's the point? We have to be accessible. We have to reach more than 500 chapters and we have to change our infrastructure of selection of everything to make that possible." And today they have 600 chapters, which is really cool. And I followed by business. So it sounds like a lot, but I did work like I was child free, I was single, and I was working really hard. And I founded 8 Spaces, which was a marketplace that was the consequence of me hosting so many events. I had a plethora of spaces where I hosted events, and I started a marketplace for event and office spaces and co-working spaces, which got acquired later by Fly Spaces, as we've mentioned. I did a lot of stuff. And my goal was to do
That's
the experience.
awesome. I'm so impressed, Lais. Community building is one of those things that naturally is embedded into so many different profiles, professions, life events. It's a skill, right? More than
Yeah.
anything else. So let's get into it. I'm very excited to actually break your science of building communities down for the listeners. A lot of the people who I'm building this podcast for are interested in building social connections, interested in building communities. So let's start from the basics. What is a community and what are the ingredients of a thriving community?
I think community is about people actively contributing to each other in a certain way, or more commonly, sharing anything. Communities are highly abundant systems where people, by interacting with each other consistently around something, around food, around ideas, around purpose, and they interact, they share, they build familiarity. And the more they get to know each other, the more they trust sharing. And the more you give into that system, the more you trust that system. And it's not that we are part of the same community, for example, and I share my knowledge with you, not in the expectation that tomorrow you'll pay me back or share knowledge with me, but trusting that the system of which we are part will give back to me. And community is that abundance-minded system in which there's three core values that are foundations for it to exist. And these three core values are abundance mindset, which enables us to share. That abundance-minded mindset is enabled by authenticity, which is the ability to freely speak our minds and feel truly at home, that I don't need to pretend being somebody else. I feel like you guys get it. You speak my language. I feel totally identified with you guys. And authenticity is an outcome of, I think, humility, which is that idea that I'm glad to be part of the whole. I'm not here to like stand out or rule or centralize. I'm here to contribute, give back, which reconnects it to abundance, you know? So I think it's really a system where authenticity, abundance, and humility are the base of its, are the foundations for its existence. And it's also identified when you look at a group and you want to know if it's a community, you can check three things. A, is there shared identity? Are they people who share purpose? Are they people who share relevant aspects about themselves that define who they are? Like, are they people in transition, for example? Are they people who want to share a same path? B, is there connectedness? Are these people directly connected to each other? Or is there someone who's speaking and they're just listening, which is more like an audience or a group? And finally, is there growth, which is more like, is there participation? Is everybody doing their work? Is there a way in which everybody contributes? Or are they just there to get something from someone? So it's a lot of things, but the bottom line is that community is about people participating, people contributing to achieve a certain goal and growing together in that process.
That's so beautifully put. Uh, Tell me, how do you differentiate? Because, a lot of people call their groups communities, right? In the online world, in the offline world, the word is now used in very many ways. Tell us how, when you are a part of a community versus you're part of a group of people, not a community, how does the feeling differ? How does one identify that this is a community I belong to?
You would think 3 times before leaving a community. It's hard. It feels like home. It feels like really attached to your heart. I know that feels very subjective, but it feels like something that you always strongly identify with. Not only you are a part of it, not only like you, it feels like you helped build it, and it's like you helped define its identity. So breaking up with the community is hard or sometimes even impossible, whereas breaking up with the group is a transactional thing. We are a group project, we accomplish a project, we say goodbye. A community can have a life cycle and it can have an end. But because communities are built upon transitions, and I can elaborate more on that idea, but I feel that what brings people together is oftentimes that people who join communities are trying to get from A to B. They are people in transition. And that journey is what builds community. That because of that journey is that people need to share knowledge, resources, ideas to become a better version of themselves, their most authentic selves. And that can be very deep, like someone becoming a new mother, or it can be very shallow, like someone just wanting to look cool and buying a brand to feel cooler. The shallower, the more group-like it is, the more transactional it is, and it's not really community. The deeper the transition, the more I would need you for a long time to help me grow, and I'm here to help you grow, and we're here for each other. And communities, you put your time, energy into it, and that starts to feel like yours, and it's harder to leave.
Let's go deeper into it. I loved your idea of people growing together, transitioning from or evolving together and becoming better together. For those of us who are interested in building these deeply connected communities, where should one start? How do you figure out what to do? How do you find these other people in transition? Yeah, what should one do?
I think this is a problem that we're facing right now. I think that it's not a I don't have a simple answer to that, but it depends first on who you are. First, you gotta know yourself and understand where are you at. If you're currently in a stage where you want connections, you want deeper connections, and you don't understand the nature of what those are, I think it's worth understanding what has changed in your life. Have you moved into a new city? Or have you started to mature into being more interested in building a family? So your group of friends who's going to parties and partying hard no longer serves you. Have you become a new parent? Are you switching careers? So I believe that the world in the way we organize itself has changed so massively in ways that our bodies haven't, because our bodies are the same as of 300,000 years ago, and the world is definitely not the same as of 10 years ago. And maybe that epidemic of loneliness that we've been talking about, that's just a hypothesis. It's an outcome of this restructuring of a world where we all belong in. And maybe that causes us all to feel like we are in search for something. We're in search for new friends. It's harder to connect with people. And how to connect, how to solve that gap, it depends on what transition you're going through or who you are aiming to become. But my main advice is that try to find the people you admire. Try to find people that you feel you'd like to be like them, and understand and start going to the places where they hang out and exploring. I actually use this metaphor in my book. When you start a community from scratch or you want to make friends or anything, usually you start by going out first and seeing what is there around and creating value to what already exists. I also call it paying respect to your elders. There's already people organizing community for new mommies, for example, in my case. And I'm first attending all of those and understanding what they're offering. And if I don't find what I exactly need there, then I'm going to meet people in those communities who I can bring to my home, my community, and build a community with them again from scratch with something more specific. For a very clear example, the process I'm going through right now is of understanding that I'm lonely here than I was before, because I've become a new mom, and moms are, if I'm not mistaken, 51% of moms in the United States, mothers of young children, report severe loneliness because it's very isolating. The spaces where you used to belong no longer accept you and your yelling kid anymore the way they accepted you as a single sexy woman before. So now I don't know where to belong. I'm in search for a community. I'm navigating all these existing mommy communities, but I'm an entrepreneur and a writer and a creative, and I want an entrepreneurial, creative mothers community, which obviously I haven't found specifically as such as I wanted. So I'm potentially meeting a bunch of moms who are like me in all those existing communities, and I'm inviting them to come to my place to make bracelets or to record a live podcast in my living room and to interview an author who wrote a book that we all read. So book clubs, all these things are just excuses to bring people together. But first, you need to understand where you're at and who are you looking for. And I would suggest get back to the start, understand yourself and try to understand who are you trying to become, and try to hang out with people who you admire and who seem to be on the same path. Long answer, but
Why
it's a
is
hard one.
so? Let's take a step forward. So you did your internal assessment. You found your voice. You said, okay, this is the kind of person I am. This is what has changed in my life, and here are the kind of people I want to surround myself with. You also started talking about what next, which is, inviting some of those people over. It's not easy a lot of times to actually go from step one to step two. So, what does your experience tell you in terms of going towards the second step of bringing people together?
Say that first of all, many times it's a big task to say, find out who you are. That's like a lifetime task. So finding who you are, it's ongoing. And I want to say that the first step of exploring the world, visiting different communities, is one that can be very clarifying. I find movement is for me and for many people I've met, and for anyone in a human experience, movement, like listening to your body, following the things you're naturally interested in, is a great way to know yourself. So my suggestion is that follow your curiosity and start identifying what is standing about you. If you want to go to breweries, or if you want to go to people wineries, or if you want to go to a jazz bar, try to look at the places where you feel like hanging out, just because you think it's cool. And that tells a lot about you. Could be that you're going to a climbing gym, or the bottom line is to try to identify what you're drawn to authentically. And here I'm talking about very personal loneliness. I'm not talking about career related. And you need to take these metaphors and put it into perspective. So translate that into your world. But the first phase of exploration is a very important one. And instead of sitting down, and of course, there are many tools that can help you from mindfulness to therapy to like understanding who you are. But I would say respect your nose. Sniff around. And many times for me, sniffing around felt like what I was doing. I was trying to identify what things I liked, what things I didn't like. I was going to places I was exploring, which by the way is harder as a new mom. But I think that exploration phase can last as long as you. And I want to highlight that and emphasize that. Once you understand their likes and dislikes, it's easy, and you probably met some people in that process. It's easier than to bring them into your space or invite them into a third space to just grab coffee. And I always go step by step. For instance, I'm not saying go to 10 events, meet people there, and then invite them to a party. That's hard to do, especially because I wrote this in my book. I had an experience of loneliness in San Francisco when I lived there. And when you're lonely, you're attacked by feelings that are like related to shame and isolation that cause you to feel like you don't want to hang out with people because you feel like you're a downer and you're going to feel that your energy is going to drag everybody down with you. So it's very hard to get out of that loneliness hole when you're actually deep into it. So taking tiny steps, such as going to an event and then grabbing coffee with someone you went to that event with, then grabbing coffee with another person, one person at a time, that's a very big step. And I'm more into coffee one-on-one than parties to 50 people. Eventually, you might host a meetup for 5 people you grabbed coffee with, and that's how you start. So I'm kind of like giving almost like a community building one-on-one step, but I'm giving more personal advice about loneliness and community building, really. And you must take that into your context if it's professional, if it's like you're building your community for a cause. That's also going to follow similar principles.
Community doesn't need to be 500 people, 100 people. It could be 3 people. It could be 5 people. And
To start, yeah.
to start off, that's how most revolutions start. That's how most
Yeah.
authentic movements start. Also, your focus on following your curiosity is a powerful one because it takes a lot of courage to follow your curiosity because there's so many people in the world telling you what you need to do and what checkbox you need to check and what milestone you need to achieve. And so to stand there and say, no, this is what really makes me happy or makes me curious and follow your heart takes a lot of courage. So thanks for that. Let's keep going to your evolution of community. So you're a new mom, you recognize that. You then attended a bunch of events, a bunch of other communities of other moms doing things together. You found some folks you resonated with more, especially the ones who were creatives and wanted to grow together. And so now you have your own version of what you want to grow into. You have people around you who also want to grow in a similar way. What do you do next?
Make excuses for them to meet recurrently and invite them to invite people into it. So what I do when I find my voice and the people who resonate with and validate that voice is that I start bringing them together and creating excuses that are meaningful, but not explicit. So I'm not inviting them because, hey, we're all lonely moms. No, this is too deep. Oftentimes we're not even aware that's the reason, but that's the deep purpose. Hey, we're all here because we want to be creative while want to grow careers, creativity, and babies. And let's just meet up and make craft. So I'm actually literally hosting a meetup right now for me called Let's Make Friends and Fill in the Blanks. So we're starting with bracelets, then we're going to maybe move into making bread, into making pottery, whatever you will. And this attracts a profile of people. The content, this designs, the community sometimes in itself. The content you create attracts a specific profile of people. That applies for startup communities. And I saw that when I was hosting startup bride events, when I would host a very techy guy, I would attract very, very hardcore tech people. When I would host like an Elon Musk type of founder in Malaysia, I would attract a massive number of people who are like more business people. So content attracts and designs the community by itself, which defines, for example, so back to the practical idea of like me building a mom community from scratch and looking for creativity as an example, hosting that craft-oriented meetup is just something fun to do. And the point is that if I only host it once, I don't have a community. The idea is that I host it recurrently. And as I post, I invite them to invite people, and we grow organically because we started from this very strong core. And eventually, one of us will be visiting and hosting and meeting us in New York City for an event, but she's going back to Boulder, Colorado, and she might start that community there. So it's like spreading dandelion seeds. That's the metaphor I use in my book. Once I have that strong core of I'm bringing moms together so that we can grow careers, babies, and our creativities together. And we're doing these recurring encounters where we make craft, but we share, we talk, we enhance each other. We talk about deep things while we're making craft. As a friend of mine put, community building is like the turkey in the Thanksgiving table. People gather to eat the turkey, but what really matters are the conversations around it. And when I host an event, when I post a blog, when I create content, when I do anything that brings people to a common point, that is just an excuse. What matters is that keeps happening recurringly. And the more it happens, the more people see each other's face, the more they build familiarity. The more they build familiarity, the more they trust each other, the more they share. And the more they participate, and the more it grows. And that's the same formula if you're building community from business, across business, nonprofit, personalized, anything. It's building engineering serendipity pretty much, which is another chapter of the book, by creating recurring encounters at higher frequency, high density, and using catalysts, which are just fun aspects of the experience, which we can talk about more later, as ways to enhance the rate of connectedness between people.
So basically, everybody needs to ask, what's their turkey? Right? What is your turkey? What is going to get
Your
people
turkey is going to
around
be
you?
multiple things. But for me, the turkey right now is literally the bracelet making party. And it's so
Yeah.
silly. It's going to be for like only 5 of us. But it could be different things. For example, music festival is a great example of a turkey. People gather because of the music, but everyone who's a big music fan knows that there's something way deeper behind loving that music than just the guitars and the lyrics and the sounds playing. It's about a way of life. It's about your values. It's about the perception of the world. Music speaks more. So if you're like a hip hop or jazz fan, that speaks a lot about who you are and your struggles and the things you can resonate with. So resonance is very important. So the reason why resonate, what I shared before, first understanding a little bit who you are and going into exploration mode to feel what you resonate with can tell you a lot about yourself and can help you creating what you said, your unique brand into the world, which is going to be likely a mix of all those explorations of yours. So I think there's like, we all create by getting inspired, and inspiration is a form of resonance. And once you find your voice, your goal is to create a room for other people to resonate with you and find their voices, which is a very beautiful thing to do. That's actually what community building is, right? So,
Yeah. So let's say you found your turkey and you
yeah.
gathered people, they had fun, right? A lot of times that doesn't guarantee resonance, right? You and I have talked about this, where
Yeah.
there are so many third places right now who are doing most of the things that you've mentioned, right? They have a purpose of existence. They get people together every week, whether it's the yoga studio or the climbing gyms or the pottery classes. But it stops there and people don't talk to each other. They come back, they're in their phones, they come back home, and then in a couple of months, they're like, I tried, didn't really find my group of friends or community. So,
Yeah.
what's missing? What creates closeness or longevity or affiliation or resonance?
Word is relevance, and relevance leads to conversations. People on the surface, I could say straight up conversation. And I'm an introvert, and that's something that surprised many people because of the brand of being beauty community. Sounds like I'm a party maker. But the opposite, I think, of community building is like hosting parties that are just like massive parties. Community builders that I know that are really good tend to be introverts because we care for deep conversations and we hate weather talk. And living in a society where people have their phones and it's just so easy to be on this mode because of course this is more protective. I have my phone here and I'm like down looking at a conversation with someone I'm already familiar with or just posting a version of myself that sounds true and I'm comfortable with on Instagram. It's way more comfortable than like opening up to a stranger. So I think that like conversations on the surface are what we want to see happen. But for that to happen, you need to create relevance. So the bracelet making party I'm doing has more like chance to stick than the yoga event, even though they are doing all the same things, because I am curating people who are coming and I'm building a space like a circle, like a cozy space. Parentheses, you don't need to do a circle. You don't need to do it in your living room. I'm just saying that the intention and the setting and the design of the activity is set to enable conversations. And relevance is preempted because I'm inviting people based on a deep level of resonance that we shared beforehand. And whenever, so you ask me, what is relevance? Relevance is, for example, we all go to yoga. Great. There's a lot of people going to yoga in the world, or we all go to climbing. Great. There's a chance we have something common. High chance, but that's not enough. It's the same. I'm going to use the mom example because that's the best one. I'm a mom and I'm going to mom meetup. There's like literally 100 of moms out there meet up. That for itself, in that context, is no longer relevant. At a climbing gym, everybody climbs. And at a yoga studio, everybody yogas. And I have to find a deeper layer of relevance within that space, which is, oh, maybe I'm a mom and I am a writer. Maybe I'm a mom and I am a writer and I have a child under 3. So these are 3 layers of relevance. And I always like to follow rules of 3s. You need to find 3 or more points of relevance to make sure that there is high density for that conversation to stick. So it doesn't matter to have just one point of identity with someone, such as purpose. There is need purpose and an aspect of their identity, which is very personal. I'm a writer. I like creativity. The yoga studio here is the 30, right? Because it's like the attractor that speaks for something deeper about yourself. But in itself, it's not enough. It needs conversations. And for conversations to stick, there needs to be relevance. And relevance often requires curation. So you need to have data of people sometimes, not freaky, cringe data. You just need to know them. So maybe you just need to talk to them. You just need to understand what they're looking for. They need to have chance to talk. So you need to somehow cut the barriers that make it awkward for me to say hi to you across the room. You must understand how to allow people, enable people, give them permission to break the ice and talk. I'm going to give an example. Pole dancing school in San Francisco. Before each class, the teacher would sit down in a round and have people ask like 3 questions, and that would be name and injuries, of course, or any desires, any wishes for this class, and what's your favorite ice cream or something silly. That itself was very shallow, but oftentimes there was some questions being asked that would create high relevance between me and someone else. For example, me liking vanilla ice cream and the girl across the room from me liking vanilla ice cream is not enough of a relevance. But if she was wearing a Fleetwood Mac shirt or Taylor Swift shirt, that would have been an added element of relevance for me to speak with her. And that's a random example. But the more points of relevance shared, the higher the chance of people connect. And how do you as a space allow those invisible points of identity to be seen and shared? And those are what are you going through right now in your life? What kind of music do you like? What do you do for work? There's so many aspects of relevance that could be considered here, but the deeper, the more relevant they are to the connection. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. So turkey is not enough. You also have to have a dining table and you have to have chairs and you need to ask people what they're grateful for. And so you do have to have layers that gets people to talk
Yeah.
and share their identity and experience. Right?
And I think the bottom line is that you need to know people. You need to get to know people if you look on it. You need to ask them questions. You need to collect their data, but not in a cringe way.
Yeah, it comes back to what you started with, that you need to be curious and have some good intention, because most people want to share. Gossip is the most innate form of evolution, right? That Noah Harari talks about it. That's how we became from a single person hunting the lion to a community hunting a lion, is because people like to be curious about one another, but with good intention. Let's move a little bit towards a fun section. One is, what is your favorite social connection ritual? What do you do to de-stress, decompress, find your people day to day?
Okay, when you first asked the question, something came to mind, which is
Yeah.
more like a ritual. A ritual for me is something that is not daily. For me, a ritual is something that is almost like personally sacred. Doesn't need to be religiously sacred. Whenever I host gatherings, I like to give people something concrete, something physical to take home. And I think that physical things have a power to signify um, something very important for us. Like we attribute importance to physical items. You see that by the fact we buy stuff in the world because oftentimes we attribute importance to physical things. But if you give meaning to small things, like in the bracelet making session, everyone's going to make an extra bracelet to share. Or if we were like all meeting to like meditate or do yoga, maybe having a little rock that you found and you're hosting 15 people, have 15 rocks and have each of them holding that rock and meditating on it and then giving it to someone else. That was just a rock. And suddenly that gained meaning. So once in a while, I think that giving people a physical small item that carries meaning, like a symbol, is a great way to carry something special forward and give people something special to hold on to. So that's a kind of little ritual that I like. It's harder in the online world, but you can think about maybe giving people a little note. You can be creative about it in the online world. If people question the importance of the value of physical things, just ask a mom to rip off the first drawing that her daughter or son made to them.
Oh, I have it right here.
Right. Like it has value. It has power to it. So I think that like
Yeah.
things can have a very strong impact in people when belonging. But my own daily connection ritual, I don't think that I don't consider it a ritual, but I think that one thing that just gives me joy and that's something that we all do naturally is just keeping up with people. And I can't think of anything more important than that. Like just keeping up with them, checking in. And there's multiple ways to do that with social media. One of the benefits of social media is that ability to keep up and support people in what they're doing. And I think staying up to date with my friends and checking in and sharing what I'm going through at the same time, sharing my knowledge is the basic premise for people to stay. It's like staying in touch.
That's beautiful. I'm going to ask one last closing question. Do you have a message for other loneliness busters or community creators who are seeking to create a more connected world, especially now, given what we are seeing around the world?
Maybe there's two things that I have in mind. I like to remind us all that communities are abundance creation systems. The moment we create a space that feels safe for people to share, in which they trust each other and they're open to share their food, their resources, their knowledge, we're creating those safe spaces, and those are abundance spaces. And it's a way to improve our economies. It's a way to improve not just loneliness, a way to help people help each other. And whenever things get challenging, try to remember and go back to that essence that if you're for some reason creating a space which is not allowing people to share and contribute and participate, and if by any means you're the only one talking, go back to that cause, that purpose around which you're bringing those people together, and try to identify ways in which they can contribute, they can collaborate, because that is what makes a community a community. Is that it's not being built by one, two, or five people. It's that it's being built by every single participant, thinking again of those dandelion seeds that go and fly and spread their core all over the world. And to a certain extent, it does not belong to you anymore as a builder. It belongs to the people who are part of it. And your role is just creating and enabling them to participate. And within that, the second message is remember that all that matters is that the people in your community feel safe and feel that they matter. Nothing matters more than people within your community feeling that you got them and you care for them deeply. If we're talking about people who belong to your community and who are going through a hard time, if you have nothing else to focus on, just focus on making sure that they feel seen and cared for. And it doesn't matter if you're Taylor Swift, and if you are building a community around the brand, or if you're a yoga studio, create systems to allow yourself to scale and make people feel seen. And the best way to do that is by building that culture of abundance in which people have each other's back. So you don't have to scale. That's how you scale yourself. You just spread your seeds of people caring for each other across. Because back to the cave time, that's what community is. It's we having each other's back. And that's what feels safe. And that's what builds the kind of longevity that Junker Chopo and Susan Pinker referred to when they talked about blue zones, is people having each other's back. So always remember, whatever you're doing in terms of community, it's about making your people feel that they matter, that you really deeply care for them, and that you're going to care for them no matter what.
I can't think of a better way to close out. Thank you so much for your time. I'm always enamored by your depth of lived experience as well as your ability to put it in a very simple way for people to actually implement it in day-to-day life. Thanks for everything. Thanks for the time. And I hope this is one of many conversations. If you're still here, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend who you think should join the Loneliness Busters squad. See you next time.